Welcome back, friends, to the Bald Booktuber. My name is Scott. It's the end of another month, so we have April wrapped up, and today we're going to talk about everything I read in April, and we'll do some plans for May. So April was a fantastic reading month for me. It was my best reading month of the year, one of my best reading months in the last couple years. I read 13 books, which is a lot for me. So that was a big number. Of those, they totaled up to 6,095 pages. So that's an average of 469 pages per book. So a really productive month, and as you'll see, really high on the rating list as well. Lots of Stanley nods this month, so good stuff. So we'll kind of talk through, as we do, from my least to most favorite, which will be my book of the month for April. I actively enjoyed every single thing that I read, including loving many things. So finding a favorite of the favorites was a little bit challenging this month, but that's a good problem to have. So a lot of this month was devoted to audio, which, as we all know, I consider to be the equivalent of reading. So I did dedicated audio for an entire space opera series that I have read before, but it's been many years, and I wanted to revisit it. And that series is called The Lost Fleet by Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell is the pen name of a gentleman named John Henry, who was in the U.S. Navy, and upon retiring from the military, did military sci-fi, particularly space opera. So there's this series, The Lost Fleet, and some spin-off series that come from that. So the basic premise of The Lost Fleet is we have the group that we are following, which is the Alliance Fleet, and they're deep in the territory of the Syndic forces. And the Syndics are kind of the quote-unquote bad guys of the story. So their leaders are all considered CEOs. So they run people and military processes and things like a business. And this war has been raging on between these two groups for over 100 years, roughly 100 years. And the basic idea behind this is our main character, our primary point of view, John Blackjack Geary, has been frozen cryogenically for the last 100 years. So he went into cryo sleep right at kind of the start of the war and has missed everything that's happened since then and is coming back now, reawakened. And so his job is to get this Alliance fleet back into their own territory out of the Syndic space. It's a fantastic series. I really enjoy it. I'm rambling a bit about it, but as the series goes deeper, it becomes more complex in terms of the politics and these kinds of things. But it's really easy to do on audio. And I love the audio. The narrator is Christian Rummel, and he's fantastic. So really enjoyed these audiobooks. Just real briefly, each of the titles is a name of one of the ships in the fleet. So Dauntless is the first one, and then Fearless, and then Courageous, and Valiant, and Relentless, and Victorious. So of these, all of them were at least 3 Stanley nods. My least favorite among them is Courageous, and really because it's more of a setup book, and kind of just leaves you on a big cliffhanger, and so that's not ideal, really. It's not a big deal when you're binging through them, but had I been reading these as they were being released, that would have annoyed me a little bit. My favorite is the last volume, Victorious, where just everything kind of ties together, and we start to learn more about another group, an alien species called the Enigma race. So that becomes more interesting in kind of the sequel series, which I also have started. So the sequel series to this is a 5-book series called The Lost Fleet Beyond the Frontier. And the first book in that is Dreadnought, which I actually just finished today. So that was a 7th book, and again, audio. That one I gave 3 Stanley nods to. It's good, but again, it's mostly moving pieces into place. So not a lot of heavy action or the things that I really enjoy with the space battles, these kind of things. So all those very good. They're quick and easy reads or listens. They're usually between 300 and 400 pages, so super easy. My next, after that I want to talk about is Salem's Lot, which I have wanted to read for a while. This is a Stephen King, it was his 2nd published work. It is a vampire story, and it's really King at his best when it comes to small town life and a huge cast. So I gave this 4 Stanley nods. An argument could be made for 5, but King got plenty of love in this list, as we'll see. I really enjoyed it. There were some slower parts throughout that kind of drug it down a tiny bit for me, but the big bad is incredible. One of King's best villains. Yeah, it was exceptionally well done, super scary, and I scare fairly easily with movies, not always with books, but it's relatively easy to see why King was dubbed the King of Horror very early on in his career. This is really good, and my understanding is it is some knowledge that is needed for Dark Tower as well, so I'm set up for that when I get there, so that's good. After that, we'll talk about Anxious People by Frederick. It's Frederick Bachmann. I forgot to put his last name on my list there, but it's Frederick Bachmann. He is a Swedish author that I am discovering for the first time this month and am a big fan of. So this one is kind of a bank robbery gone awry, and the people that are involved in it, the hostages, as it were. Sort of a softer and more emotional Dog Day Afternoon, if that makes sense, if you've seen that movie. I really enjoyed this. This was very good, and it kind of forces the reader to address some of their maybe preconceived notions, maybe some of their biases in different ways, which is really good. I didn't like it as much as his other book that I read this year that I'll talk about in a moment, but really liked it. I think Frederick Bachmann's going to be somebody that I return to quite a bit. And his books are on audio, unscribed, so very easy to attain them for free. So that is a good thing as well. So I'll definitely be doing more of that. Stepping back just a moment for Salem's Lot, I did that immersively, and the narrator is Ron McLarty, who was fantastic. So, and then this one, Anxious People, I did on audio only, and that was Marin Ireland, who was also very good. She was exceptional in reading this. So that brings us down to the top 4, and any one of these could certainly have been Book of the Month. These were all fascinating and wonderful reads, some of my favorite reads in a long time. So it was hard to choose among them, certainly, which again is a very good problem to have. So probably, I think the order I'll go with, number 4, I will go with The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is the second in his Bloodsworn trilogy. It released this month. I actually had an advanced review copy of it that I didn't get read and reviewed in time for the release date, but that's all right. The good news about waiting for release date is that I got to read it immersively, and it includes one of my favorite narrators, Colin Mace, who also did Shadow of the Gods, the first title in the trilogy. I have a hard time with some of the Norse names and terminology and that kind of stuff, so being able to do it immersively helps me a lot, and I get more out of it that way. But Orca, one of the 3 primary points of view, is one of my favorite characters in fiction, and she had another amazing arc in this one. She is incredible. I really liked what he did with the character of Elvar. She was also amazing. Yeah, it was fantastic, fantastic, reading experience. I had a great time. And that last 200 or 300 pages I just burned through. So just like with Shadow of the Gods, it takes me a little bit to get into the story, but once I'm in it, I'm immersively into it and I just go. So it's a great time. Number 3 is one that I actually talked about in my March wrap up, and that's A Man Called Ove by, again, Frederick Bachmann. Fascinating, fantastic book. So if you are interested in a story about an older gentleman dealing with loss and dealing with his place in the world, I don't know if you can do better. It was heartbreaking in places. It was heartwarming in other places. Just a wonderful, wonderful book. I had a great time, and there was a good chance that that was going to be my book of the month when I read it. It was the first book I read in April, and already I was like, I don't know if anything can beat this. 2 things did, but we'll get to those in just a minute. The narrator was J.K. Simmons. I did it on audio only. You're probably familiar with his work as an actor. He's a fantastic actor. He did a great job with this. I would highly encourage people to check out A Man Called Ove. All right, that brings us to number 2, a book that is about a year older than me. It's hard to believe anything is older than me, but The Shining was published in 1978, if I recall correctly. So that's a year older than me. Obviously, Stephen King. The narrator was Campbell Scott. I both read and listened. I did it immersively. Perfect book. So I plan to do a dedicated review of this potentially, but this had a little bit of everything. This had a man's slow descent into madness. This had a man struggling with his addictions, a young boy coming to grips with the world and understanding it in his own terms, when he has special powers that other people don't share and or understand. Just a little bit of everything. The supernatural in this was fantastic. I have seen the movie. I do really like the movie, but this is just, I wish I had read this prior to watching the movie. It's really, really good. And the changes made in the movie, I understand why they were made, but ultimately I prefer the book, as is so often the case. Fantastic. And then we get to my number 1, my book of the month, and it should come as no surprise. I have been a Dark Tower junkie now since the beginning of the year. We had Drawing of the Three in February was my book of the month. Last month, it was very close to Wastelands being my book of the month. It was number 2. And now this month, Wizard and Glass, book 4 in Dark Tower. Just a wonderful, wonderful just journey on thinking about Roland and his backstory coming into the present time. I loved everything about this book. I'm not the biggest Western guy in the world, but the Western vibes in this were super cool. The love story was fantastic, and I'm not a big romance guy, but the love story was fantastic. Charyu Tree, anyone who's read it knows what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go read it. Every emotion was hit. It's everything I want in a fantasy story. I'm not the biggest Wizard of Oz guy in the world, but the Wizard of Oz nods in this were super cool. The only thing I can say that I don't love about this book is there's not enough Eddie or Jake or Susanna or Oi. So our current cast, we don't get enough of to satisfy me. It's mostly that first couple chapters, first chapter really, in the book and a little bit at the end, and the rest of it is just that frame narrative of Roland's backstory. But, honestly, I loved that middle part the most, and everything about it was fantastic. So I can't say enough about either the book or this series. Yeah, fantastic stuff. So let's, since we've been rambling for a while, let's move on to what the May plans are. And it's a relatively short list because I want to leave room for more mood reading and more other stuff that I just want to throw in. I'll probably continue with more of the Lost Fleet Beyond the Frontier titles because I can audio those in 2 or 3 days without any trouble. So I'll probably mix one or two of those in, but my big rock priorities, I have three that absolutely will happen. And the first is Stephen King's Firestarter. So I've been sort of reading in publication order. I started with Carrie and then Salem's Lot and then now The Shining. And I think the next one is maybe The Dead Zone or something else. I can't really remember. Firestarter is a couple after that or something, but I'm reading it out of order because the movie is coming out this year. So there'll be a new movie adaptation on May 13th, and I've never read it, so I'm interested in seeing how I get along with it. Both the book and the movie. Maybe I'll do a video about maybe the differences or what I liked about each one, didn't like about each one, that kind of thing. But that's first priority, so I'll probably start that today or tomorrow. Today being the last day of April, tomorrow being May Day, the first day of May. The next big rock is I'll be buddy reading with my good friend RJ Gibson. I'll have his channel listed in the description. He and I are going to be buddy reading a memory called Empire. So it's Arcady Martin. If you saw my recent video on sci-fi series, I want to prioritize. This was, I think, either number 1 or number 2 on the list. And Tex Kalani series. So it's a duology, and this is the first book. I'm assuming that if we really like it, we'll just continue on to A Desolation Called Peace, either in the same month or in the following month of June. So really looking forward to that. Next up on the 19th, as always on the 19th, we'll be starting Dark Tower number 5, Wolves of the Kala. Can't wait to get to this. This is where the series starts to go a little bit haywire for some longtime King fans that were reading the stuff as it came out. I'm interested to see if, as a binge reader, doing one a month, I have a different experience than longtime constant readers who were reading these as they were released. 5, 6, and 7 of Dark Tower, some people absolutely adore them and some people absolutely despise them. So it's going to be interesting to see what my experience is, or if I'm somewhere in the middle of that continuum. So I can't wait to get to it. I'm super excited. So we'll see what happens. And then the two other ones that are strong possibilities, but we'll see, are The Shadow of What Was Lost and An Echo of Things to Come. Books 1 and 2 of Lycanius by James Islington. I was supposed to have read The Shadow of What Was Lost in April and didn't get to it. So I read probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 chapters and enjoyed what I read, but I just prioritized other things. Like, I never really planned to do The Shining in April, but it just happened. And so some of the other stuff just kind of went by the wayside. So I still need to get to these. I do want to kind of catch up with that read along I'm participating in, loosely participating in. So that'd be good. The other book I need to get to, and I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, is book 3 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and that is Two Great Angel Towers. That still needs to get done as well. So I've got a lot of pretty heavy fantasy titles that I need to find a way to work in, but I'm not going anywhere, and I'm still doing a lot of reading each day, so I'm sure I'll get to them at some point. But this has gone on for almost 20 minutes, so thank you to those who have stuck with me. Please, if you're enjoying the content, like and subscribe. Please comment and get the discussion going on how your April went and what your May plans are. I really appreciate everybody's support, and I will talk to you all soon.